Welcome to Friendly Math 101. Today our lesson is on solving quadratic applications. Let's take a look at our first problem. Instead of writing out the entire word problem, I'm just going to go ahead and read it. It says the quadratic equation 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 80t gives the time t in seconds when a golf ball is at the height 0 feet. How long is the golf ball in the air? So essentially we're going to use the quadratic formula to figure out when this golf ball lands. I'm going to list out my A, B, and C first. So here A is equal to negative 16. B is equal to 80, and C, well, there's no C term, so that's going to be 0. And we're going to substitute these values into the quadratic formula. So we have negative 80 plus or minus the square root of 80 squared minus 4 times our A value times our C value all over 2 times our A value. And I'm just going to simplify this part by part. So we have negative 80 plus or minus, this becomes the square root of 6,400 all over negative 32. And I always check to see if this is a perfect square, which it is. So this would be negative 80 plus or minus 80 all over negative 32. At this point, we're going to divide our answer into two solutions, our plus solution and our minus solution. So we have x equals negative 80 plus 80 over negative 32, as well as negative 80 minus 80 all over negative 32. And when we simplify this, negative 80 plus 80 is 0. 0 divided by negative 32 is 0. And here, negative 80 minus 80 is negative 160, and negative 160 divided by negative 32 is 5. It looks like we have two solutions, but if we understand the application, the 0 represents where the golf ball, or what time the golf ball started, and the 5 would represent the time that it landed. So our answer to the question would be 5 seconds. Let's take a look at another example. So here the problem reads, the height in feet of a soccer ball kicked upward from the ground with initial velocity of 60 feet per second is modeled by the equation negative 16t squared plus 60 equals 0, where t is the time in seconds. Find the time it takes for the ball to return to the ground and round to the nearest hundredth of a second. So again, we're going to use the quadratic formula to solve for when the soccer ball lands. The A value in the problem is negative 16. Since there is no t term, the B value is 0 and C is 60. We're going to substitute this into the quadratic formula so we get 0, because the opposite of 0 is still 0, plus or minus the square root of 0 minus 4 times our A value times our C value all over 2 times our A value. And again, I simplify part by part. First the discriminant. We would get the square root of the square root of 3,840 all over negative 32. And I check first to see if this is a perfect square, but it's not in this case. And typically we'd have to simplify the radical, but since it's an application, we're just going to use a decimal. And we're going to round this to the nearest hundredth. So we get 61.97 all over negative 32. We're going to split up our solution into our plus solution and our minus solution. And then we're going to check the reasonableness of our answers. So for the first solution, 0 plus 61.97 over negative 32, this stays 61.97, and that becomes negative 1.94. And here, when we simplify, we get positive 1.94. So if we understand what the problem is talking about, we're talking about a soccer ball when it lands. It doesn't make sense that the soccer ball would land at negative 1.94 seconds. You can't have a negative time. And so the answer to this application problem would be positive 1.94 seconds. And that concludes our lesson on solving quadratic applications. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave your questions in the comment section below. And for more math tutorials, subscribe to our channel, Friendly Math 101.